Good morning, everyone. What a beautiful weather we're having lately. Who's enjoying those warmer temps? Yeah, I know I am. My name is Reverend Ayliah Cannon, and I am not the minister of this church. I am a community minister, which is a little different than a UU minister. However, I do really enjoy dedicating as much time as I can to this congregation. I encourage you for the next hour to lay your burdens down, to let your worries subside, to rest your weary feet from this life's journey. Regardless of the path that brings you here, bring the truth of your life to this place. We are not empty vessels waiting to be filled. We are vessels overflowing with stories and ideas, talents and ambitions. Regardless of the wounds we may carry, we may all find healing salve in the connections we make here with others. We are spiritual travelers, seeking a destination of joy and peace, with the faith to face one more challenge, with a love that can banish hate, with a strength to tread yet one more step, raise one more voice, speak one more justice. I call you to worship.
The Road Not Taken, by a poem by Robert Frost, is the theme of today's service. And Mr. Frost wrote the poem as a joke for his friend, fellow poet Edwin Thomas. The two men often walked the roads and trails around around the area, and Thomas was chronically indecisive about choosing which road to take. He often lamented that they should have taken the other road. Despite doing his best to make sure the poem was an obvious jest, many people took the poem very seriously. Frost was quoted as saying, "I'm never more serious about anything when I'm joking." Frost created a dilemma that you might find in a fairy tale when confronted by choice. The speaker comes to a fork in the road and has to decide which path to follow. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and I'm sorry I could not travel both. Oftentimes, we are faced with the same dilemma of proportion and must decide what is the best choice for us to continue the path of life's journey. Which road is the road of opportunity? The road on the right or the road on the left? Which road is more appealing? The road on the right or the road on the left? Or are they both roads equally appealing? If we can't see very far down these roads, one could be very treacherous and rocky. This is a choice that we all must make about life. If we don't like the road that we're on, can we turn around and go back? Life is full of choices, but how often do we make the right choice? How do we know if we're on the right road or in the right job? What instinct or feeling assures us that we are spending our lives with the right person? How do we know our happiness is real? These and other paradoxes of life are entirely left up to you. Nobody knows what is the right road to take. You can ask people for advice, but at the end, the decision is left up to you.
Have any of you ever stopped to think about, if I had chosen differently, what path might I be on now? I do it rather often, maybe too often. Because sometimes I'll look around at the scenery and I'll say, I need to make some serious changes. One of those decisions that I like to look back on is a decision I made to not attend medical school. You see, it was around 1986, and I had just been accepted into a program for physician's assistants at Howard University in Washington, D.C. I was excited. My family was excited. They were telling everyone in the town. But there was this debate going on in my head. I was like, am I really ready to commit all these years to school? Am I really ready to set all my other dreams and goals aside? Well, when you're only like 21 or 22, you don't always make the choice you might have made later. Rather than play it safe and go to university and set myself up with a nice career, living comfortably, I decided to take all of my money out of my college savings from the paychecks I was making in the military and spend it on band equipment. Because I was determined I was going to be a musician and a singer and a writer, and nobody was going to stop me. Well, oh well. We choose different roads, and they don't always work out the way we intend them to. Sometimes I regret that I didn't take a safer road, though, because music was such an integral part of who I was. I started writing lyrics when I was in second grade, and by 6th or 8th grade, somewhere around there, I started putting those words to music. And I didn't have anyone who could teach me how to really write or read music, so I came up with my own system of little symbols and dashes, so I would always know how the music was supposed to flow. Now I write sermons instead of songs, but I don't regret my choice. I thought music could change the world. I still do. But now I hope that my sermons can change the world in a little bit. Sometimes, even when we choose a different path, it still leads to feelings of authenticity down the road. At some point in your life, each of you made a decision. You chose a different road when you walked in through these doors. And then you decided, am I going to stay? Am I going to come back? And I see the new people around, and I hope you come back. I really do. This is a special place to me. That's why I wanted us to sing Return Home, because a church community should always feel like returning home on Sundays and every other day that you can make it here. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "To be yourself in a world that is trying to make you something else is the greatest achievement." Where do these feelings of authenticity come from? Let me give you a hint. It comes from accepting and trusting yourself, recognizing your weaknesses, embracing your strengths. It comes from being in community with others who feel authentic. It comes from something that we can't define because it's just a feeling of peace in your life with where you are. James Luther Adams referred to something called a covenant of being. Now, this is not the kind of covenant that you make with other people. This is a covenant you make with yourself. You decide in this present moment that you are at peace with your ongoing search for your truth and meaning. It is a vision of mutuality and peace with your existence, and that includes being at peace with the path you've chosen. Now, if you ever go on YouTube, every minister out there loves to talk about why they're a UU. I have looked, and I haven't sat through all of them. But I want to talk to you today about why I'm still a UU. I stand up here today because I want to challenge your faith. I want to challenge your faith and your authenticity as a UU. Well, maybe not a real tough challenge, gently, a compassionate challenge. Are you sure you're on the right road? Did you take the road less traveled by to get here? Or did you take a path that was worn down by multitudes? We'll talk a little bit later about why that's not so important. See, Unitarian Universalism is not an easy path for everyone. UU historians can trace the history of our religion back as far as the Nicene Creed. Now, this wasn't true Unitarian Universalism because we haven't been around that long, but it was UU-ish. History tells us that for about 3 centuries after Jesus was born, there was no doctrine enforced. All the different religions lived side by side. They all got along with each other. But there was a debate going on. People were debating whether Jesus was actually a god or a human. Well, Emperor Constantine at the time, he got very weary of hearing this constant debate. So he called all of his religious scholars into a council. And they all sat down and they all debated and shared their points of view. And they decided, we're going to grant Jesus godhood. And they rejected his humanity. And anyone who didn't like that idea, they could go somewhere else. Years later, the Holy Spirit was added to create the Holy Trinity. And at the time, the Bible actually did not speak about a Trinity. This was an idea that these religious leaders had come up with. They were already practicing political power. And if anyone didn't agree with them, you were tortured and probably burned at the stake. One of the first analytical theologians, Origen, believed religion should be enriched by a search for the truth. The church leaders said, "How dare you question authority?" Origen died in prison after many years of torture. Let us skip ahead a few hundred years, what do you say? To the early age of the Renaissance. Culture, science, art, they're all making these great advancements. And there's this guy, Galileo. He's got this brand new theory. He says that the earth travels around the sun, not vice versa. Not very popular. With biblical cosmology already reeling from the fact that Columbus's ships had failed to sail off the edge of the world, this was just a little too much. After he was forced to rebuke his stance, he was imprisoned under house arrest for the remainder of his life. Are you starting to see a pattern here? With what we're witnessing in the country, if you speak out against leaders, it might not always go so well for you later on. Let's jump to another point in UU history. We're almost to the modern times, I promise. The place is West Roxbury, Massachusetts. Theodore Parker is addressing his congregation, and he says, "I promise I will preach nothing that I have not experienced inwardly and accepted as my own." He is quoted as saying, "Gravity does not operate because Newton said so." So is the same for religion. Confirm your beliefs by experience and not whether the Bible tells you to. Now, these tales depict the life cycle so far of liberalism, which has been a topic that I've been enjoying reading about since January. And it explains a history of opposition to free thinking and our principle of the search for truth and meaning. The religious leaders of the Nicene Creed had a word for this. Perhaps you've heard of it: heresy. Heresy refers to the ability to choose. People of independent minds, they do not accept beliefs because authority tells them to. Now, I know what you're thinking. You bunch of heretics. Yes, I am a heretic. I own that. Heretics Anonymous here. Or not so anonymous. We UUs, we independent thinkers, we believers of experience-based theology, we heretics, we who dare to choose the road less traveled by. We do live in challenging times. One such challenge is to our definition of liberalism. We have arrived at this point in our lives, coming in on the coattails of an economy that is still recovering from COVID and being assailed by new threats, still reminded of the attempted insurrection of January 6th, facing an unprecedented wave of social and political unrest, where disinformation is being used to stir the pot of cultural violence against the transgender community, against the immigrant community, and who knows what's going to be next. How do we even begin to prevent the surge of disinformation if we can't identify it? And we know the answer to that. We can't always identify it. I've learned I feel like I have been studying what sources are the best sources for news for so many years. I can't just turn on the news. I have to make sure that I'm turning on news that is supposed to be accurate. We must celebrate every success if we are to get through these times. Just this week, we saw Cory Booker in his marathon speech. Wasn't that exciting? 25 hours. He didn't pee, he didn't eat, he didn't sit down. Boy, I can imagine my arches after all that. And we saw a historically red district in Florida elect their first Democrat. These are the signs of good trouble that John Lewis urged us to do. These signs of hope strengthen my spirit as a UU. Yesterday, we saw people from all walks of life, stand up and protest and say, "No more." This strengthens my resolve. I feel like, yes, I have chosen the right road in the Yellowwood. And when we continue to acknowledge and celebrate these successes, we will give these concepts much more value and find much more meaning to give us hope and to keep resisting and moving forward. There is a concept called realized eschatology. That's a fancy word. And it simply means that we live from a perspective of ultimate hope. We can imagine greater possibilities, and we make our lives a realization of that hope. It's similar to a self-fulfilling prophecy, but with a happy ending. Hope is a shared value that binds us together in community. Hope says, it's not about the road that brought me here. It's about how I'm going to face the road ahead of me. And hopefully we can face that road together, because together we will make it. And we will make that destination a possibility and a reality of peace and happiness. Perhaps you see the pattern of leaders who are weaponizing the Bible to avoid their own internal search of truth and understanding. Religion has become such a convenient weapon for these people throughout the centuries. They see how people are affected by spiritual beliefs, and they manipulate them for their own personal success and endeavors. This onslaught of false facts and twisted meanings of words may have even caused some of you to doubt your own identities. Your identity as a liberal, your identity as a UU. I stand here to challenge you to be authentic, to hold true to your search for understanding, and I challenge you to remain resilient upon this road less traveled. Theology is not something we just do with our heads. It encompasses more than just our hearts. Theology takes place intellectually, it takes place emotionally and spiritually, and it takes place in our lived experiences. In Unitarian Universalism, we have a long history as a justice-seeking people, questioning what we are told to believe, and we question the authority of those who would rob us of our authenticity. Our shared value of tenacity is undeniable, and we are bound to a long list of forefathers, UU leaders, and ancestors who have gone before us in this faith tradition, who would dare cry out, sapere aude, dare to think. Thank you.